Amanda stared at the check in her trembling hands. $1 million. The number itself was enough to make her dizzy, but what it meant was even worse. The quiet hum of the city outside couldn't calm the storm building inside her chest. Earlier that day, Amanda had sat across from Eleanor Thompson in an upscale Manhattan cafe. Without a flicker of emotion, Eleanor had pushed the check forward. "This money is yours, dear," she said coldly. "I just need you to disappear from my son's life." Amanda froze, her fingers clenching around her purse. For a split second, she thought it was a joke, a cruel, absurd joke. But Eleanor's icy expression made it clear this was deadly serious. A bribe. A clean break. A purchase of silence. Back on the street, Amanda's pace was fast and unfocused. Her coat flapped in the wind as she clutched her bag close to her side, the check burning inside it. The city bustled around her, indifferent, as her world tilted off its axis. The subway rattled through the tunnels while Amanda sat motionless, eyes locked on her reflection in the glass. Her lap held the folded check, like a bomb waiting to go off. She felt hollow. Contaminated. Like a price tag had been stamped on her soul. She stepped into the apartment and gently closed the door behind her. The familiar space felt foreign now. She placed her keys on the table, but couldn't let go of the check. Her fingers clung to it like it might explain itself if she stared long enough. Amanda reached for a glass of water, her hands trembling so badly she nearly spilled it. The cold water did little to soothe her. She leaned on the counter for support, eyes unfocused, thoughts spiraling. She sank to the floor beside the bed, her back pressed against the frame. The check lay beside her, untouched but impossibly loud. Eleanor's voice replayed in her mind on a loop, each word cutting deeper than the last. She picked up the photo and cradled it against her chest. Michael's smile stared back at her from another life, a simpler one. A life before deals and ultimatums. Her throat tightened, her heart aching with helplessness. By candlelight, Amanda scribbled in her journal, tears dropping onto the pages. Her words were raw. "Today, someone tried to buy my love." The check poked out from under the notebook, a silent accusation. "But I'm not for sale." Wrapped in her cardigan, Amanda sat by the window, watching the city lights blur beyond the glass. She wondered how many people had been bought in a race by people like Eleanor. How many had stood where she stood now, and given in. Her thumb hovered over Michael's contact. Her gut screamed to tell him, but fear chained her fingers. What if he didn't believe her? What if this destroyed everything they'd built together? Sleep refused to come. Amanda lay in the dark, eyes tracing patterns in the ceiling she couldn't see. The check on the nightstand felt like a neon sign, a reminder that her life had taken a turn she never asked for. In her dream, Michael walked away from her without turning back. She tried to call out, but her voice failed. Everything faded into swirling colors, leaving only silence and the echo of abandonment. Amanda jolted awake, breath caught in her throat. The morning light crept through the blinds, but the tension in her chest lingered. The dream was gone, but the feeling of loss remained. Water streamed over her shoulders in the shower, but she barely felt it. Her eyes were closed, her body still. Thoughts churned in her mind like a storm with no end. She stared into the mirror, searching for something, strength, maybe, or answers. The woman looking back at her didn't feel like the same Amanda from yesterday. This one looked cracked, uncertain. She dressed slowly, movements deliberate. As she slid her arms into her cardigan, her eyes hardened slightly. The fear was still there, but so was the fight. Amanda picked up the check one last time. She folded it carefully, not tearing it, not hiding it, just putting it away. She slid it into the back of a drawer. Out of sight. For now, she returned to the bed and sat down slowly. Holding the photo close, she whispered, "I never imagined the love of my life would come with a price tag. And that I'd be tempted to accept." 2 years earlier, Amanda's life was anchored in the chaos and joy of teaching third graders in Queens. Her classroom wasn't fancy, but she'd made it vibrant with love and color. That day had been especially draining. One child had a meltdown, another lost a tooth, and the printer jammed 3 times. But Amanda had smiled through it all. As she erased the whiteboard, her shoulders sagged with exhaustion. She loved this job, even on its hardest days. As the bell rang, her students rushed out, and she took a long breath before gathering her things and heading toward her usual cafe for a moment of peace. Amanda pushed open the cafe door, greeted by the comforting aroma of espresso and baked goods. It was a small haven nestled near Fifth Avenue, with mismatched chairs and handwritten chalkboard menus. She needed caffeine and silence. The line was short, and she placed her usual order, grateful for familiarity. As she turned, distracted, her elbow knocked against a tray being cleared nearby. In a flurry of panic, Hot coffee splashed across a man's chest. Her eyes widened in horror. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she gasped. The man stood up slowly, dabbing at his shirt with a napkin, and smiled. The man was tall, with striking blue eyes and a calm presence. His blonde hair caught the cafe's soft light as he glanced at his soaked shirt and then back at Amanda. "It's okay," he said, clearly amused. This shirt was too clean anyway. Amanda grabbed extra napkins from the counter, apologizing profusely. "I swear I'm not usually this clumsy," he laughed. "I'm Mike." She introduced herself, cheeks still red. He gestured to the seat across from him. "Why don't you sit for a minute? I could use the distraction from these boring blueprints." Something about his voice made her pause and accept. Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Michael talked about designing buildings that told stories, while Amanda described the challenges and joys of shaping young minds. They laughed about spilled coffee, annoying printers, and their shared dislike of early mornings. For the first time in a long time, Amanda felt truly seen. Mike didn't just listen, he asked questions that mattered. When she finally glanced at her watch, nearly an hour had passed. "I should go," she said reluctantly. "Me too," he replied. "But only if you let me see you again." She smiled. "Okay. But next time, no coffee disasters." That evening, Amanda recounted the entire story to her best friend, Sophia, between bites of leftover lasagna. "You spilled coffee on a guy and still got a date?" Sophia asked, laughing. "That's a power move." Amanda rolled her eyes, blushing. "He was sweet. Funny, too. And so tall, I almost had to look up twice." Sophia leaned in, curious. "Where does he live? What does he do?" Amanda shrugged. "He said he's an architect. Works freelance, I think. Didn't talk much about his life, just asked about mine." Sophia narrowed her eyes. "He's either perfect or hiding something." Amanda just smiled. Across town, in a sleek apartment high above Manhattan, Michael was telling his father about Amanda. "She's unlike anyone I've met," he said, pacing slowly. "Smart, grounded, real." James, seated in an armchair with a glass of whiskey, looked intrigued. "Sounds like someone worth keeping around." Michael nodded but kept certain details to himself. He hadn't told Amanda who he really was, or the size of the Thompson legacy. Not yet. He needed to know she liked him, not the empire he came from. James sensed the omission but didn't press. "Well," he said calmly, "follow your gut, son." Amanda stood in front of her bedroom mirror, carefully fastening her earrings. It had been a while since she'd felt this fluttery about a date. Her room was small but cozy, books stacked on the nightstand, a potted plant leaning toward the light. She checked her hair twice, then again. "Relax," she whispered to her reflection. But her nerves danced anyway. Mike had texted earlier, looking forward to tonight. She smiled at the message again. Something about him felt different. Not flashy, not forced. Just real. As she stepped into her shoes, her heart tapped a quick rhythm. Instead of a restaurant, they ended up at a quiet park, talking for hours under the trees. The fall breeze rustled leaves around them, but Amanda barely noticed. They shared childhood stories, embarrassing moments, and favorite movies. Michael listened intently, laughing at all the right times. At one point, their hands brushed, and neither pulled away. Amanda hadn't felt this ease, this connection, in years. When Michael leaned back and looked up at the stars, she followed his gaze. "I could stay here forever," he murmured. She smiled. "Then I guess it's a good first date." As they walked side by side through the quiet city streets, Amanda felt like she was in a dream she didn't want to wake from. Michael kept glancing at her, as if trying to memorize every expression. "Can I see you again?" he asked when they reached her building. "You'd better," she teased, unlocking the door. He hesitated, then smiled and stepped back. "Good night, Amanda." She watched him disappear down the sidewalk, heart full. Inside her apartment, she leaned against the door, exhaling softly. Something about him stirred hope in her, hope she thought she'd outgrown. Amanda lay on her bed, wrapped in a blanket, phone glowing softly in her hand. Michael had just sent a message, "Tonight was amazing." She typed a reply, erased it, typed again, then sent, "I haven't laughed like that in a long time." A moment later, "When's the next one?" Her heart skipped when the reply came almost instantly, "Name the day." She laughed quietly to herself. After everything, the stress, the exhaustion, the cautious wall she'd built, this felt like a window opening. She set the phone down, heart calm and awake. Something was beginning. Their relationship blossomed in the quiet corners of New York, the kinds of places that didn't demand wealth or status. On sunny afternoons, Amanda and Michael met in city parks, sharing sandwiches and jokes as pigeons strutted nearby. Michael seemed happiest in those moments, away from crowds, just the two of them talking about anything and everything. He always paid for their food, but never made a show of it. If she offered to split, he gently refused with a smile. "Let me spoil you a little," he'd say, brushing a crumb from her cheek like it was the most natural thing in the world. One Friday night, they went to a small neighborhood theater that still showed old films on weekends. The place smelled faintly of popcorn and worn velvet. Amanda loved how different it felt from chain cinemas, personal, nostalgic. As they watched the black and white romance unfold on screen, she felt Michael's fingers brush hers on the shared armrest. She didn't pull away. Neither did he. It was in those quiet, unspoken touches that Amanda started to fall. Michael whispered something silly in her ear, and she laughed, resting her head lightly on his shoulder. It all felt so effortless. After one late-night craving for pancakes, they stumbled into a 24-hour diner that hadn't been renovated in decades, cracked vinyl booths, flickering neon signs. Michael had ordered waffles with extra syrup, Amanda went for eggs and toast. They joked with the waitress and left with greasy takeout bags and full hearts. Outside, the city buzzed quietly around them. Michael reached for her hand as they walked. Amanda looked at him in the glow of a nearby street lamp, wondering how she'd gotten so lucky. Everything about him felt warm and real, like he truly belonged in her world. Amanda decided it was time for Michael to meet someone important. "Just don't expect champagne," she joked. Her mom's apartment in Queens was small, but Amanda had grown up there. Every picture on the wall told a piece of her story. When Michael stepped inside, he didn't flinch at the humble setting. Instead, he smiled and said, "It feels like home." Amanda's mother, Patty, greeted him warmly, surprised by his politeness and the way he offered to help with dinner like it was nothing. That evening, laughter filled the kitchen, and Amanda watched Michael fit in like he'd always belonged. Patty took a liking to Michael almost immediately. He asked about her job, complimented her cooking, and even offered to do the dishes. "Not many men do that on the first visit," she teased, nudging Amanda. Amanda blushed, and Michael just smiled, rolling up his sleeves without protest. Later, as they sipped tea on the worn couch, Patty whispered to her daughter, "He's a keeper." Amanda smiled but didn't say anything. She agreed, though. Michael's presence in her life felt like something solid, something good. Still, part of her wondered why he never talked much about his own family. Later that week, Amanda sat on her bed folding laundry when she noticed the sleek shopping bag Michael had given her tucked in the corner. Inside was a designer scarf, the kind she'd never dream of buying. It was beautiful, soft, and absurdly expensive. He'd brushed off her protests when he gave it to her, saying, "You deserve nice things." But it gnawed at her. Michael always had cash, wore clothes that screamed quality, and never once mentioned money stress. She chalked it up to architecture paying well, but the thought lingered. Something didn't quite add up. Amanda told Sophia everything, the gifts, the dates, how Michael had won her mother over. They walked side by side down a quiet Queens sidewalk, coffee cups in hand. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "He sounds perfect." "Too perfect." Amanda frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Sophia shrugged. "He never talks about his family." "You don't think that's weird?" Amanda hesitated. She had noticed that, too. Michael always dodged questions about his background. Still, she brushed it off. "Maybe it's complicated." Sophia didn't push further, but Amanda could feel her friend's unease following her home. Michael arrived one evening with flowers, bright, cheerful daisies, and a smile that made Amanda's heart flutter. "For the best teacher in Queens," he said, handing them over. Amanda laughed, cheeks pink, and found an old vase in the cabinet. As he looked around the apartment, Michael didn't seem out of place, but Amanda couldn't help but notice the contrast. His shoes alone probably cost more than her rent. She pushed the thought aside and focused on the way he looked at her, like she was the most important thing in the room. Weeks later, Michael was invited to a gala hosted by a major architectural firm, the kind of event where his family would almost certainly be present. He asked Amanda to come, even bought her a simple but elegant dress. But as they approached the grand building, Michael slowed down. People in designer gowns and tuxedos floated by like ghosts. Amanda noticed his hesitation. "You okay?" she asked. Michael nodded but then pulled out his phone and pretended to check a message. "Actually, something came up. Can we skip this?" Amanda said nothing, but her heart sank. They walked away from the gala in silence, Amanda's heels clicking softly against the sidewalk. She didn't press him, but the air between them had shifted. It wasn't just the event, it was the way he'd looked at that building, the way his shoulders tensed. "Sorry," he said quietly. "I just didn't want tonight to be complicated." Amanda nodded, forcing a smile. But doubts were blooming in her chest like weeds. Who exactly was Michael Thompson? And what part of his life was she not allowed to see? 18 months into their relationship, Michael asked Amanda to meet him for dinner at a restaurant inside Rockefeller Center. She'd been there once as a tourist but never dined in any of its high-end venues. Walking side by side with him through the marble corridors felt surreal. Elegant people passed in heels and suits, the scent of expensive perfume floating in the air. Amanda adjusted the strap on her shoulder bag and smiled nervously. Michael looked distracted. She reached for his hand, but he only gave a quick squeeze, then pulled ahead slightly. Something felt off. The restaurant was breathtaking, all glass, gold, and glowing light. Their table had a direct view of the skyline, and a soft jazz melody played overhead. Amanda had dressed up, but even now she felt underdressed. Michael sat across from her, oddly quiet, fiddling with his water glass. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, then looked down. "There's something I need to tell you." Her stomach tightened. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded brochure. On the front, Thompson Real Estate, Legacy Through Architecture. Amanda blinked. She'd seen that logo all over Manhattan. Amanda stared at the brochure, the name sinking in like a stone in water. "You're part of this?" she asked slowly. Michael nodded. "My full name is Michael Thompson. My family owns the company. We've been in real estate for generations." Amanda's pulse raced. The Thompson name wasn't just familiar, it was everywhere. Skyscrapers, parks, even subway ads. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. Michael looked pained. "Because I didn't want to lead with a bank account. I wanted you to fall for me, not my name." Amanda sat back, speechless. Michael leaned closer, voice low but urgent. "Amanda, I've never felt this way about anyone. But every woman I dated before. They saw the last name and suddenly treated me differently. I wanted something real this time." Amanda didn't answer right away. Her mind was a blur. Dinner, the building, the logo, it all swirled together. "You lied to me," she said at last, not accusing, just hurt. He winced. "I didn't lie. I just withheld." Amanda looked down at the tablecloth, heart pounding. She wasn't sure whether to cry or leave. Or both. Excusing herself quietly, Amanda stepped into the ladies' room. She leaned against the sink and stared into the mirror. Her reflection didn't offer answers, just wide eyes and flushed cheeks. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust. About feeling like she truly knew the man she loved. Did it matter that he was wealthy? Not on paper. But the secret, the world he'd hidden, that was harder to digest. Amanda splashed cold water on her face and took a few deep breaths. She didn't want to storm out. But she couldn't pretend nothing had changed. When she returned to the table, Michael stood up instinctively, then sat back down as she did. "I'm sorry," he said again. Amanda studied his face, the same face she kissed in the park, laughed with over pancakes, shared secrets with. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Do your parents know about me?" Michael hesitated. "Not yet." She nodded slowly. "Because you knew they wouldn't approve?" He didn't answer. That was answer enough. Amanda exhaled sharply, folded her hands in her lap, and said, "So what happens now?" Michael reached across the table, his hand warm over hers. "Amanda, I want you in my life. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I just didn't want to scare you away." She looked at him, her defenses softening slightly. His voice was raw, genuine. "I know I messed up. But everything I said, everything we've shared, it's all real." Amanda searched his face for any sign of manipulation, but all she saw was fear. Not fear of losing status, fear of losing her. She nodded, just slightly. "I believe you," she whispered. "But this won't be easy." They left the restaurant in silence, the city buzzing around them. Amanda's heels clicked softly on the pavement as they walked past towers that now felt oddly personal. She glanced up at the Thompson logo on a nearby building. How many secrets were hidden behind names like that? Michael reached for her hand, and this time she took it. Not because everything was fixed, but because love, real love, demanded a little faith. They didn't speak for a while, just walked, letting the night air cool the tension between them. There was still so much to face. Back at home, Amanda curled up on the couch, her phone resting in her hand. A message from Michael was on the screen. "Thank you for not walking away. I mean it." She hadn't replied yet. She wasn't angry anymore, just unsure. The man she loved was still Michael. But now he was also Michael Thompson, heir to a billion-dollar empire. Could she live in both worlds? Did she even belong in his? The room was quiet, but her thoughts were loud. She didn't want to lose him. But she also didn't want to lose herself. Amanda stood by the window, watching the lights flicker in the distance. Somewhere out there, Michael was probably doing the same. She touched the glass, unsure whether it was a barrier or a connection. He had hidden part of himself, but she could still feel the truth in his words and in his eyes. Maybe love wasn't about perfection. Maybe it was about showing up after the truth came out. Amanda took a breath, deep and steady. She wasn't ready to run. Not yet. But she knew things would never be quite the same again. Amanda had never seen anything like it. The mansion loomed ahead, its pristine facade glowing under the evening sky. Impeccable gardens framed the circular driveway, where luxury cars stood like ornaments. As the car slowed to a stop, Amanda exhaled sharply. Her palms were sweating. "You okay?" Michael asked gently. She forced a smile. "Just overwhelmed." He gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "They're just people. You'll be fine." But the look in her eyes said otherwise. This wasn't just dinner, it was an audition. And she had no idea what the script was. The door opened, and Eleanor Thompson stood framed in gold-toned lighting. She looked exactly as Amanda imagined, elegant, cold, and completely unreadable. Her silver gray hair was flawlessly styled, her posture statuesque. "Welcome," she said, stepping aside. Michael kissed her cheek, but Eleanor barely acknowledged him. Her gaze landed on Amanda with surgical precision. "You must be Amanda." Amanda nodded and offered a smile. "It's so nice to meet you, Mrs. Thompson." Eleanor's reply came smooth as glass. "Likewise. Do come in." And just like that, Amanda entered a world she'd never imagined herself part of. Inside, everything sparkled. The chandelier overhead looked like it belonged in a museum. The floors were so polished Amanda hesitated to step forward. Expensive art lined the walls, and fresh-cut flowers perfumed the air. "Wow," she murmured. Michael smiled faintly, but Eleanor was already walking ahead. "We'll dine in the smaller hall tonight," she called back, as if downsizing to make them more comfortable. Amanda glanced at Michael. "Smaller?" she mouthed. He shrugged. She felt like an imposter, a school teacher from Queens in a palace of marble and legacy. And dinner hadn't even started. The dining room was the size of Amanda's apartment. The table gleamed with polished wood and gleaming silverware arranged with mathematical precision. Amanda sat beside Michael, her hands clasped in her lap. Across from her, Eleanor watched like a hawk. "So," Eleanor began, voice silky. "Tell me about your family, Amanda." Amanda smiled nervously. "My mom raised me alone. She's a cleaning lady." A pause. Eleanor sipped her wine. "That must have been character building." Michael shifted uncomfortably. Amanda swallowed hard. The room felt 10 degrees colder, despite the chandelier's warm glow. "James, thankfully, offered some relief." "What grades do you teach?" he asked kindly. "Third grade," Amanda replied, her voice steadier. "They're exhausting but wonderful," James chuckled. "Braver than I'll ever be." Amanda smiled, grateful. But Eleanor wasn't finished. "And how do you envision your future? Your career, your goals?" Amanda blinked. "I love teaching. I hope to continue growing in that path." Eleanor tilted her head. "Interesting." Amanda could hear the judgment behind the civility. She wasn't sure what answer Eleanor wanted, but it was clear this wasn't it. The questions continued, softly spoken, carefully worded, but pointed like needles. "Have you traveled much? Do you invest in retirement? Do you read the journal?" Amanda answered as best she could, but the undertone was always the same: "You don't belong here." Eleanor's eyes never blinked. She dissected Amanda's speech, posture, even her salad fork. Amanda kept her chin high, but her stomach churned. She could feel herself shrinking with every sentence, even as she tried to stay composed. This wasn't a conversation, it was an interrogation in pearls. Michael tried to steer the evening gently. "Mom, Amanda volunteers with a literacy program on weekends," he offered. Amanda smiled faintly. Eleanor simply replied, "How admirable," and changed the subject. Amanda felt Michael's hand slip under the table to squeeze hers. She squeezed back, holding on like it was a lifeline. James tried to shift the mood by telling a story from Michael's childhood, and everyone chuckled briefly, even Eleanor, with a polite nod. But the moment passed quickly, and Amanda knew the evening spotlight was still firmly, mercilessly, on her. By dessert, Amanda felt like she'd run a marathon. The cheesecake looked perfect, but she could barely taste it. Eleanor had asked about politics, charity, books, always with a tone of subtle superiority. Amanda held her own, but every answer felt like a test she wasn't prepared for. She stole a glance at Michael, who looked increasingly uneasy. James continued to smile, but even he couldn't smooth over the sharpness in the room. Amanda wished, for the first time, that Michael had never brought her here. The dinner was almost over, but the damage had already been done. Excusing herself to freshen up, Amanda wandered just beyond the dining room and paused near an open doorway. Voices filtered through. Eleanor's tone was quiet but firm. "She's not right for him, James. She's sweet, but ordinary. Our son needs someone who understands this world." Amanda froze. Her stomach dropped. James replied something softer, but Amanda didn't hear it. The blood in her ears drowned everything else. Her heart pounded. So that was it. No matter how polite Eleanor smiled, the truth had finally slipped through. Amanda turned back toward the hallway, eyes stinging. On the drive home, Michael reached for her hand. "I'm sorry," he said softly. Amanda stared out the window. "She thinks I'm not good enough for you." He didn't deny it. "She's wrong." Amanda finally looked at him. "Are you sure?" Michael's eyes were steady. "Absolutely." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the road. Amanda didn't know what came next, but in that moment, she needed to believe him. She leaned her head against the window, his hand still holding hers, and whispered, "I hope you're right." 2 weeks after the dinner, Amanda found herself sitting across from Mrs. Rodriguez, the principal of her school. The older woman's tone was unusually formal. "Amanda, I've received several complaints from parents," she said, sliding a file across the desk. "Concerns about classroom discipline, teaching materials, alleged favoritism." Amanda blinked in shock. "That doesn't make any sense. I've never had an issue." Mrs. Rodriguez nodded slowly. "I know. That's why I'm confused too. But the board wants documentation." Amanda left the meeting shaken, feeling as though invisible hands had suddenly started pulling strings. That evening, Amanda sat alone at her desk, long after the kids had gone home. The room, usually filled with laughter and chatter, felt hollow. She glanced at the hand-painted posters on the wall, book covers the children had made, math charts she'd spent hours designing, and then buried her face in her hands. Who would do this? Why now? Was this retaliation for something? The only thing that had changed recently was dinner with Eleanor. Amanda didn't want to believe it. But deep down, something told her this wasn't a coincidence. Someone was watching and interfering. At home, Patty sat across from Amanda with a letter in her hands. "They let me go," she said quietly. "Said they're cutting costs. After 5 years." Amanda's eyes widened. "But you've been cleaning that building since I started teaching." Patty nodded, her expression sad but calm. "Something's off, Mandy. They didn't even say goodbye." Amanda felt her stomach twist. First her job, now her mother's? She reached across the table and held her mom's hand tightly. "We'll figure it out." But in her heart, Amanda was beginning to realize someone was pulling the rug out from under them both. The next morning, Amanda noticed something strange. A black car had been parked near the school for 3 days in a row. 2 men sat inside, not moving, always looking straight ahead. At first she brushed it off. Then Sophia brought it up. "That car gives me the creeps," she whispered. Amanda nodded. "I thought I was imagining it." The feeling of being watched clung to her skin. On the playground, she noticed one of the men raise a phone and snap a photo. Her breath caught. This wasn't just her imagination. Someone was gathering information on her. Sophia didn't mince words. "You think this is all coincidence?" she said as they sat together on a park bench. "Your job being questioned. Your mom getting fired. Strangers taking pictures?" Amanda shook her head. "I don't know. I keep trying to be rational, but it's too much." Sophia leaned forward. "You need to tell Michael. This has Eleanor written all over it." Amanda hesitated. "He already thinks I'm stressed out from work. I don't want to sound paranoid." Sophia's voice softened. "Mandy, this isn't paranoia. This is war. And you need backup." Amanda finally told Michael everything over coffee. The black car. The complaints. Her mother's job. He listened intently, eyebrows furrowing. Are you sure it's connected? He asked gently. Amanda bit her lip. I can't prove it. But it feels like a pattern. Michael squeezed her hand. I believe you. But my mother. She wouldn't do something like this. Amanda's face hardened. Wouldn't she? He didn't answer. She pulled her hand away, not angry, just hurt. The seeds of doubt had already been planted, and Amanda wasn't sure love alone could keep them from growing. Miles away, in a pristine office lined with leather books and floor-to-ceiling windows, Eleanor flipped through a manila folder with a practiced eye. No arrests. No debt. Modest academic record. Lives with her mother, she murmured. Across the desk, a private investigator stood silently. Continue monitoring her, she said, closing the folder. Anything, even the smallest detail. I want it on my desk. The man nodded and left. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. Everyone has a flaw, she said aloud. All I have to do is find hers. Later that night, Amanda opened a letter from the school board. It was vague but official. A preliminary review of her teaching conduct was being initiated. Her chest tightened. After all her years of dedication, after every extra hour she'd given her students, this. She folded the paper slowly and set it aside, staring at the ceiling. What more would they take? Her job? Her peace? Her relationship? She wiped her eyes, jaw set. If someone wanted to break her, they'd have to do better. She wasn't going down without a fight. Michael sat in his apartment, the skyline stretched out beyond the glass. His phone buzzed with unread messages from Amanda, but he didn't open them yet. His thoughts were tangled. He wanted to believe his mother wouldn't go that far, but he also knew what she was capable of when she wanted something. And Eleanor wanted Amanda gone. He rubbed his temples, guilt pressing hard. How could he protect Amanda without declaring war on his family? And if it came to that, whose side would he take? Eleanor stood at her office window, surveying the city like a queen admiring her kingdom. She wasn't angry, she was patient. Removing Amanda wouldn't happen overnight. But pressure, applied precisely, could crush anything. Her son was smart, but idealistic. Amanda was strong, but not invincible. Eleanor had built an empire by knowing which weaknesses to exploit. And now she'd found a crack. One way or another, she whispered to herself, this will end. The city shimmered below. And she smiled. Michael had chosen his moment carefully. The sun was setting over Central Park, casting long golden rays across the path. Leaves crunched beneath their shoes as he and Amanda walked hand in hand, laughing softly about something she'd said. The air was crisp, scented with the changing season. Amanda didn't know where they were going, she only knew it felt right. Michael gently steered her toward the bench where, nearly a year and a half ago, they'd shared their first kiss. The spot where everything had begun. Her smile faded into something quieter, deeper. She felt something coming. Michael took a breath, then dropped to one knee. Amanda froze. He pulled a small box from his coat pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple but elegant ring, understated, classic, just like her. Amanda Santos, he said, his voice trembling slightly, will you marry me? Amanda's hands flew to her mouth. For a long second, she just stared at him, tears welling up. Then she nodded quickly, her voice catching. Yes. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and she pulled him up into a tight, tearful hug. The world around them disappeared. They sat on the bench afterward, Amanda's head resting on Michael's shoulder, her fingers playing with the new ring. A few passers-by had seen the proposal and clapped politely. One woman even shouted, congratulations. Amanda laughed, still teary, her heart full to the brim. I can't believe you did this here, she said. Michael kissed her forehead. It had to be here. This is where I knew. She looked at him, beaming. You mean where you knew I'd spill coffee on you? He grinned. Exactly. They both laughed, wrapped in a perfect little moment neither would forget. Later that night, Michael stood by the window of his apartment, phone pressed to his ear. We're engaged, he said. Silence on the other end. Then Eleanor's voice sliced through. You're what? He repeated it, calmer this time. I proposed to Amanda. She said yes. For a moment, there was only breathing. Then came the explosion. You cannot be serious. That girl is a gold digger, Michael. She sees your name, not you. He closed his eyes. She didn't even know my name for a year, Mother. Then she's smarter than I thought, Eleanor hissed. He ended the call. In the Thompson estate, Eleanor's fury echoed through marble and glass. He proposed to that. That woman, she spat, pacing the kitchen. I told him this would happen. I warned him. James, seated with a cup of tea, sighed. Eleanor, calm down. Calm down? She's manipulating him. He can't see it. James shook his head. Maybe he sees something you don't. That only enraged her more. If you won't help me, I'll handle this myself. She stormed out, heels striking the floor like gunfire. James stared into his tea, troubled. Something told him this was far from over. At Amanda's apartment, the mood was the exact opposite. She sat across from her mother, holding out her hand. He proposed, she said, her voice shaking. Patty gasped, then covered her mouth. Oh my God, Mandy. Amanda nodded, eyes full. I said yes. They hugged tightly, tears flowing freely. He's a good man, Patty whispered. You deserve this kind of love. Amanda smiled. I think so too. They spent the evening dreaming aloud, about the dress, the venue, what song would play as she walked down the aisle. For a little while, nothing else mattered. Michael sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the screen. A new message from Eleanor glared at him. You're making a mistake. She's not one of us. I won't let this happen. He sighed, tossing the phone onto the bed. The joy of the engagement was still in his chest, but now it was layered with dread. His mother wouldn't stop. She never did. He rubbed his eyes, suddenly exhausted. All he wanted was to be happy with Amanda. But in the Thompson world, happiness came with conditions. And Eleanor controlled the fine print. In the dim light of her private study, Eleanor flipped through the investigator's latest report. Photos of Amanda teaching. Of Amanda walking with her mother. Even one of Amanda laughing with Sophia on a street corner. She sipped her wine slowly, her eyes scanning each page with icy precision. She has no idea who she's dealing with, she murmured. The folder snapped shut. Eleanor had built her life on control, financial, social, emotional. She didn't lose. And she wouldn't let her son throw away his legacy for a woman with nothing to offer but a pretty face and a tragic backstory. Back in their own little world, Amanda and Michael lay on the couch, wrapped in a soft blanket, the city glowing beyond the window. She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. Do you think we'll be okay? She asked softly. Michael kissed her hair. I know we will. But Amanda couldn't shake the chill that sometimes crept in when she thought about his mother. She pushed the fear down, focusing instead on the warmth of his arms and the weight of the ring on her finger. For now, this was enough. Alone in her living room, Eleanor sat with an old photo album open on her lap. A wedding photo stared back at her, herself and James, decades younger, full of hope. She ran her fingers over the image, eyes distant. Once, she had believed in love. Before inheritance. Before betrayal. Before she learned that emotions were currency, and some people paid dearly. Now, watching her son chase something she believed would ruin him, she felt nothing but resolve. She would stop this marriage. Not out of hate, but out of cold, calculated protection. Amanda walked through the lobby of the Plaza Hotel, heels echoing on marble as she took in the towering ceilings and golden fixtures. The place was stunning and intimidating. She clutched her bag tightly, scanning for Eleanor. The invitation had come suddenly, a short message from an unknown number. Please meet me at the plaza. Just the two of us. Amanda had hesitated, unsure what Eleanor could possibly want. But part of her hoped, foolishly, that it was some kind of truce. A chance to start over. That hope would not survive the next hour. Eleanor was already seated when Amanda arrived, sipping something clear in a crystal glass. She looked perfectly composed, as if this meeting were just another business negotiation. Amanda, she said, standing briefly before gesturing to the opposite chair. Thank you for coming. Amanda sat slowly. I thought. Maybe you wanted to talk things through. Eleanor smiled thinly. In a way, I do. Her bag sat beside her on the bench, and her fingers rested atop it like a cat guarding prey. Amanda's stomach tightened. She knew now, this wasn't a conversation. It was a transaction. Without flourish, Eleanor opened her bag and pulled out a white envelope, thick and crisp. She slid it across the table like a poker chip. There's a cashier's check inside for $1 million, she said, her voice calm. Tax-free. No strings, just one condition. Amanda blinked, not touching the envelope. What condition? Eleanor met her eyes without blinking. Leave Michael. Disappear from his life. Never speak to him again. Amanda stared at the envelope, then at Eleanor. You're bribing me. I'm protecting my son, Eleanor replied. from making the worst mistake of his life. Amanda didn't speak for a moment. Then, slowly, she pushed the envelope back toward Eleanor. I'm not for sale. Eleanor's smile barely moved. Everyone has a price. You just haven't realized yours yet. Amanda's voice shook. I love him. That's why I won't take your money. Eleanor leaned back, folding her arms. You really think love is enough? You'll never belong in his world. You'll be miserable. He'll resent you, or worse, pity you. Amanda stood. You don't get to decide that. Eleanor's smile vanished. This was my generous offer. If you don't accept, things will get difficult. Amanda stormed out of the hotel, fury pulsing in her chest. The city moved around her in its usual blur, but everything felt off-kilter. She couldn't believe what had just happened. $1 million, for her silence, her disappearance. Eleanor had spoken with such cold certainty, as if Amanda were a problem to be erased with enough zeros. Her hands trembled as she hailed a cab. Inside, she clutched her purse like armor. Rage mixed with disbelief. She wanted to scream. But instead, she pulled out her phone and texted Sophia, I need to see you. Now, Amanda told Sophia everything. Every word. Every offer. Every threat. They sat on a bench near the river, the city lights shimmering in the distance. Amanda's voice broke as she said, she looked me in the eyes and told me I'd ruin his life. Sophia put an arm around her, jaw tight. You need to tell Michael. He deserves to know what kind of game she's playing. Amanda shook her head. If I tell him, it'll break them apart. What if he ends up hating her forever? What if he hates me for causing it? Sophia sighed. And what if you don't tell him, and lose everything? Michael stared at his phone, frowning. Amanda hadn't been herself lately. Her replies were short, delayed, distant. Tonight she hadn't responded at all. He typed out a message, Are you okay? I miss you. Then deleted it. Then retyped it and sent. He didn't know what was going on, but something had shifted. She was pulling away, and he didn't understand why. He trusted her. Loved her. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was driving a wedge between them. And it was working. Eleanor sat at the head of the dining table, the wine in her glass catching the candlelight. She refused, she said simply. James looked up. You offered her money? Eleanor's tone sharpened. I offered her freedom. A chance to walk away before she ruins him. James set his fork down. You crossed the line. Eleanor didn't flinch. If Michael won't protect himself, I will. James shook his head. And what if he finds out? Eleanor smiled coldly. Then he'll thank me someday. James didn't respond. He knew better than to argue, but he feared the damage was already done. Amanda sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed again, Michael's name lighting up the screen. She didn't move. The offer, the threat, the guilt, it all swirled inside her like smoke she couldn't breathe through. She loved him. But now that love felt like a liability, something that could destroy them both. Her chest ached. Part of her wanted to tell him everything. The other part feared what would happen if she did. She reached for the phone, then pulled her hand back. The silence rang louder than the ringtone. That night, Amanda couldn't sleep. She lay still in the dark, eyes fixed on the ceiling, tears slipping down into her hairline. The weight of the envelope, though she never took it, still pressed on her chest like a stone. She knew she had done the right thing by refusing. But that didn't make it easier. What scared her most wasn't Eleanor's threat, it was how close Amanda had come to considering it. How real the temptation had felt. She whispered into the darkness, please don't let this ruin us. But she wasn't sure anyone could hear. Amanda stared at the paper in front of her, words like breach of conduct and unprofessional behavior blurring on the page. There's been a formal complaint, the administrator explained, avoiding her eyes. The board has voted to terminate your employment effective immediately. Amanda's mouth went dry. What complaint? I'm sorry, the woman interrupted, folding her hands. This is final. Amanda left the office in a daze, heart pounding, ears ringing. She had given everything to her students, and now, suddenly, she was out. No explanation. No warning. Just gone. At home, Amanda sat in stunned silence. Her lesson plans, student projects, and thank you notes from parents lay strewn across the bed, now worthless. Her phone buzzed with messages of confusion and concern from colleagues, but none had answers. She kept replaying the administrator's tone in her head, flat and final. Eleanor's warning echoed louder now. If you don't accept, things will get difficult. Amanda wiped her face with the back of her hand, anger rising beneath the grief. It wasn't just her career Eleanor had taken, it was her identity, her purpose. At Patty's new job, things took a cruel turn. She had just finished mopping the marble floor when Eleanor Thompson walked in, heels clicking sharply. "You must be Amanda's mother," she said loudly, her voice echoing. Patty straightened. "Can I help you?" Eleanor smiled thinly. "No. I just wanted to see where my future daughter-in-law's family works." A few people glanced up, sensing the tension. "Cleaning is honest work," Patty replied. Eleanor leaned in. "So is knowing your place." She turned and walked away, leaving Patty standing there, flushed, humiliated, and shaking with fury. Michael flipped through the envelope in disbelief. Grainy photos of Amanda walking beside a man he didn't recognize, laughing, touching his arm, smiling in ways that twisted Michael's stomach. They weren't explicit, but they were suggestive enough. The note had no sender, just one sentence typed in bold. "Still think she's different?" Michael dropped the photos on the table, heart pounding. He trusted Amanda. He did. But after everything, the question started to whisper. Doubt, slippery and sharp, began to creep in where certainty used to live. When Amanda saw the photos, her heart stopped. "Where did you get these?" she asked, voice shaking. Michael didn't answer right away. "They came in the mail." She grabbed the prints. "This is from months ago," he's a coworker. "We were going over a reading plan." Michael sat back, pinching the bridge of his nose. "I believe you," he said quietly. But something in his tone made her stomach twist. She knelt beside him. "You know me. Please." He looked at her, and nodded. But doubt had already planted roots. Neither of them could unsee the cracks. Amanda walked aimlessly through the city, her mind a blur. Fired. Defamed. Her mother humiliated. And now Michael. Changing. The weight of it all pressed into her chest like iron. People passed by without seeing her, and she preferred it that way. The thought crossed her mind more than once. Maybe Eleanor was right. Maybe love wasn't enough. Maybe she didn't belong in that world. Her reflection in the glass storefronts looked pale and tired, a version of herself she didn't recognize. And for the first time, she wondered how much more she could take. Sophia found her curled up on the couch, eyes red, tissues everywhere. "Talk to me," she said gently. Amanda sobbed, trying to speak through the tears. "She ruined everything. My job. My mom. Michael's looking at me like I'm someone else." Sophia hugged her tight. "You need to tell him what's really happening." Amanda shook her head. "He won't believe me. Not now. Not after those photos." Sophia pulled back. "Then you make him believe. Before it's too late." Amanda didn't respond. She was too tired to fight, until the nausea hit her like a wave. Amanda stood frozen in the pharmacy aisle, a pregnancy test in her hand. Her fingers trembled as she read the instructions on the box. The sounds around her faded, a mother scolding a child, the ding of a register, none of it registered. She moved to the checkout in a daze, barely hearing the total. Back home, she sat in the bathroom, staring at the result. 2 pink lines. Her breath caught. Her hands flew to her mouth. The world tilted. Of all the moments she had imagined sharing with Michael, this wasn't one of them. Not like this. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. Amanda sat on the cool tile floor, the test still in her hands. Her body was still, but inside she was screaming. A child. She was going to have a child. A tiny life had begun inside her, just as everything around her was falling apart. She wanted to be happy. She wanted to tell Michael and see his eyes light up. But right now, all she felt was fear. Not of motherhood, but of what this world would do to her child. And of whether Michael would still be there to face it with her. That night, Amanda stood in the dark, her hand resting gently on her stomach. She watched the city glow in the distance, a city that had taken so much from her. But now, deep within, it had also given her something. Someone. A reason to fight. Her reflection in the glass looked tired, but stronger than before. She whispered softly, "I've got you. No matter what." The war with Eleanor wasn't over, not even close. But now, Amanda wasn't just protecting herself. She was protecting a future. And for the first time in days, her eyes filled with something more than tears, purpose. Amanda sat motionless as the nurse slid the paper across the desk. "It's official," she said gently. Amanda picked it up with trembling hands. Black and white text confirmed what she already knew, she was pregnant. But seeing it printed made it real in a different way. Her heart raced. Joy and terror surged together like a tide. A baby. Her baby. She ran her fingers over the word positive and felt tears prick her eyes. This wasn't how she pictured the moment, but it was hers. And somewhere beneath the fear, a quiet certainty began to grow. Amanda waited until they were home, alone. She held his hand tightly and whispered, "I'm pregnant." For a moment, Michael just stared at her. Then his face broke into a stunned, joyful smile. "Are you serious?" She nodded. He pulled her into a hug, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "This is the best news," he said. "We're going to be a family." Amanda felt a small piece of hope return. Maybe they could build something new, stronger. Maybe the love between them was enough to drown out Eleanor's voice, at least for now. Eleanor stood at the top of the stairs like a statue carved from fury. "She's pregnant," she snapped into the phone. James looked up from the foyer. "Eleanor." But she cut him off. "She's trapping him. It's obvious." She hung up and turned sharply, heels striking the marble. James climbed a few steps. "You can't control everything," he said calmly. She whirled. "Watch me." James watched her go, shoulders heavy with dread. He had seen this look before, the ruthless one she wore before every corporate takeover. But this time, the target was their future grandchild's mother. Eleanor summoned Amanda to the mansion. Amanda came alone, unsure what to expect, though she had a sinking feeling. Eleanor was waiting in the sitting room, perfectly composed. "I know you're pregnant," she said bluntly. Amanda didn't respond. "This changes everything," Eleanor continued. "Which is why I'm offering you $5 million now. Leave. Start over. But disappear." Amanda's breath caught. "You think I'd take money to walk away from my child's father?" Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "I think you'll do what's best for him. For everyone. Because if you don't, I will ruin you completely." Amanda gripped the chair behind her like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "You're threatening me," she said quietly. Eleanor tilted her head. "I'm informing you. I have the means to make your life, and your family's, miserable. I already started, didn't I?" Amanda's knees felt weak. "You did this. All of it?" Eleanor didn't answer. She didn't have to. Amanda's stomach churned. Her baby, the one she'd just begun to imagine, was now a target in a war she never asked for. And she was running out of ways to fight back. Michael entered through the hallway, his voice calling, "Mom? Amanda?" He froze when he saw them, Amanda pale and tense, Eleanor standing cold and still. "What's going on?" Amanda opened her mouth, but Eleanor spoke first. "We were just having a conversation. About the future." Amanda shook her head. "She offered me money again, Michael. $5 million this time." Eleanor's tone was icy calm. "I was testing her. To see where her loyalties lie." Michael looked between them, disbelief spreading. "Amanda. Is that true?" Amanda's eyes filled. "Yes, but what?" he asked, voice flat. Amanda reached for him. "Please listen." Michael stepped back. "I want to believe you. I do. But why didn't you tell me before?" Amanda's voice cracked. "Because I didn't want to come between you and your family." He turned away, running a hand through his hair. Eleanor stood silently in the background, victorious without smiling. Amanda's throat tightened. "You think I care about her money?" Michael turned back, eyes glossy. "I don't know what to think right now." Amanda felt the floor tilt beneath her. The baby inside her suddenly felt more real, and more alone. Michael sat in the dark, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. His phone lay silent beside him. He had replayed the conversation a dozen times, Amanda's voice echoing between his mother's words. The woman he loved was pregnant with his child, and now he wasn't sure if he even knew her. But deep down, something didn't add up. His mother's calm. Amanda's pain. The timeline. Still, doubt had a grip on him, cold and cruel. He wanted to call her. But he didn't know what to say. And silence was easier than more confusion. Amanda lay curled on her side, eyes open, one hand resting on her belly. The silence of the apartment felt heavier than usual. Every breath was a struggle against the rising panic in her chest. She had imagined sharing this moment with Michael, not like this, not divided and distant. She whispered softly, "It's okay. I'm here." To herself. To the baby. To no one. The tears came again, quietly this time. There was no one to stop them. No one to hear. Just her and the small life growing inside, and the fear that they might have to face it alone. Eleanor stood by the window, her silhouette reflected against the dark glass. The city glittered far in the distance. She had done what needed to be done. Love was a fairy tale, and fairy tales had no place in the world she ruled. Her son would be angry, yes. But eventually, he would thank her. He always did. She sipped her wine slowly, watching her own reflection with careful detachment. Better a son who hates me, she murmured, than a son who loses everything. And with that, she turned away from the window, her shadow trailing her like a warning. Amanda sat in silence, the phone heavy in her hand. Her thumb hovered over Eleanor's number. The decision clawed at her insides. But Michael's voice, confused, distant, echoed in her mind. The doubt in his eyes. The gap between them growing wider every day. She had tried. She had fought. And now, she was tired. Slowly, she pressed the call button. When Eleanor answered, Amanda's voice didn't shake. I'll take the offer. On one condition, Michael can never know about the baby. A pause. Then Eleanor's voice, agreed. Amanda ended the call. And exhaled like she was breaking. Eleanor placed the phone down gently, the corners of her mouth curling into a rare, satisfied smile. The deal was done. Amanda was out of the picture, the family name preserved. She poured herself a drink, the ice clinking like a quiet celebration. Finally, she whispered. But underneath the satisfaction, a flicker of something colder lingered. She hadn't just won, she had forced Amanda to surrender everything. A child would never know its father. And Michael would never know the truth. To Eleanor, that was a small price for legacy. A necessary cruelty. Amanda sat at her desk, pen in hand, paper trembling slightly. The letter wasn't long. She wrote that she loved him, but they were from different worlds. That she had lost herself trying to belong. That it was time for her to find her own path. This isn't your fault, she added. It's mine for thinking love could change everything. Her tears stained the ink, but she didn't stop writing. When she finished, she folded it carefully, slid it into an envelope, and wrote his name on the front. It was goodbye. The kind that didn't need answers. The suitcase clicked shut. Amanda stood by the door, one last look sweeping across the apartment. Every corner held memories, laughter, late-night confessions, hope. Now, only silence. She placed the envelope on the table by the window, next to a framed photo of them smiling. She didn't take the picture. She couldn't. Grabbing her bag, she looked around once more. I'm sorry, she whispered into the empty room. And then she walked out, each step heavier than the last. Michael arrived home hours later. The apartment was still, unusually so. He called her name, but no answer came. Then he saw the envelope. His name, in Amanda's handwriting. His hands trembled as he opened it. As he read, the color drained from his face. What is this? He whispered, rereading the lines. Why? He sat down, the letter clutched in his hand, eyes filling. There had been no fight, no explanation, just this. It felt like someone had yanked the floor from beneath him. He didn't even realize he was crying until the paper was soaked. Amanda sat by the window, the city slowly fading behind her. Her stomach churned with more than nausea now. She wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the blur of lights and cars outside. She wasn't running toward anything. She was running away, from love, from hope, from the wreckage of everything she tried to protect. She thought of Michael. Of the way he smiled in the mornings. Of what it would have been like to raise their child together. But she had made her choice. And now, all she had left was silence and forward motion. The plane lifted from the ground, and Amanda watched the skyline vanish beneath layers of cloud. A new chapter had begun, though it felt more like an epilogue. She hadn't told Sophia where she was going, just left a note. Los Angeles. Her aunt had a spare room. It wasn't much, but it was far. Far enough to disappear. Her fingers brushed her belly again, the smallest gesture of comfort. I'll keep you safe, she whispered. But she didn't know if she could keep that promise. Not alone. James sat in his study, the quiet hum of the evening around him. He reread Amanda's goodbye letter Michael had shown him, and something didn't sit right. It wasn't Amanda's voice. At least, not the woman he had come to know. His gut told him this wasn't her choice. Not really. He opened a drawer and pulled out a file. One he had quietly asked a contact to prepare weeks ago, just in case. If Eleanor had interfered, he would find out. And this time, he wouldn't stay silent. Sophia stood alone in Amanda's empty apartment, the air still holding faint traces of her friend's perfume. She clutched the note Amanda had left, short, vague, final. Tears burned behind her eyes, but fury burned hotter. You idiot, she whispered. You don't get to just leave. She looked around the room, fists clenched. She knew something had happened. Something Amanda wasn't saying. And if Amanda wouldn't tell Michael the truth, then Sophia would. One way or another, someone had to fight for that baby. For what Amanda had given up on. Michael stood in the hallway, Amanda's letter crumpled in his hand. The room felt cold, vast. The silence gnawed at him. He didn't understand what had gone wrong, or why she had walked away without a fight. He replayed every moment, searching for signs, for something he missed. All he found was love. And now, absence. He leaned against the wall, eyes closing, trying to breathe through the pain. He didn't know where she had gone. But something in him whispered, this wasn't goodbye. Not yet. Michael sat frozen as Sophia laid everything out. Amanda didn't leave because she stopped loving you. She left because your mother cornered her. She offered her $5 million to walk away, and Amanda agreed, not for herself, but for you. Michael's breath caught. That can't be true. Sophia slid her phone across the table. She's pregnant. She didn't even tell you because she thought it would ruin your life. His heart dropped. The weight of the truth, all of it, landed with a crushing force. Where is she? He asked. Sophia didn't hesitate. Los Angeles. Michael didn't knock. He barged into the mansion, voice echoing off the marble. You bribed her. Eleanor turned slowly, her expression unreadable. I protected you. He stepped closer, hands clenched. You shattered her life and mine. She lifted her chin. She was going to destroy everything we built. No, he snapped. You did. She remained calm, but her eyes darkened. You'll thank me one day. He shook his head. No. I'll never forgive you for this. And with that, he walked out, leaving the empire behind to chase what truly mattered. The next morning, Michael moved quickly through the terminal, suitcase trailing behind him. Every footstep beat out a rhythm in his chest. Get to her, get to her. He didn't sleep. Didn't think twice. He only knew Amanda was in Los Angeles, and he had to see her. The boarding call echoed through the speakers, but all he heard was her voice in his memory. Her laugh. Her goodbye. He tightened his grip on the handle and picked up his pace. If there was any chance left to make things right, he would find it on the other side of this flight. The Los Angeles sun was warm, but Amanda's thoughts were far away. She walked slowly, one hand resting protectively on her stomach, the other gripping her sweater. It had been weeks since she left. The silence from Michael hurt more than she expected, but she told herself it was for the best. She paused at the corner, blinking against the light. And then froze. A figure stood at the end of the street, unmistakable even from a distance. Her breath caught. He was here. He had come. Michael didn't wait. I know what happened. Sophia told me everything, the money, the threats, the baby. Amanda's eyes widened, then filled with tears. I didn't know what else to do. He squeezed her hands. You should have trusted me. I was trying to protect you, she said. And our child. His voice softened. I don't want protection. I want you. She looked away, torn. I made a mistake. So did I, he whispered. Let's fix it. Together. Amanda's lips trembled. She nodded, barely, but it was enough. Amanda unfolded a piece of paper and handed it to him. I never touched the money, she said. Michael scanned the bank statement, the full amount still sitting in an untouched account. You never spent a cent? She shook her head. I couldn't. It didn't feel right. It never was about the money. His throat tightened. You could have used it to escape. Or raise the baby comfortably. Why didn't you? Because love should never be bought, she replied quietly. And in that moment, Michael knew he hadn't lost her. Not really. Not forever. They stood shoulder to shoulder as the door opened. Amanda extended the envelope. The money? All of it. We're returning it. Eleanor blinked, caught off guard. Why bother? She asked coolly. Michael met her gaze. Because we don't need your permission. Or your wealth. James watched silently from the hall, his eyes on Amanda, full of respect. Eleanor said nothing. For once, her words failed her. Amanda stepped back, taking Michael's hand. They turned and walked away, leaving the past and the power games behind them. That night, James stood in the study, arms crossed. You've lost him, he said. Eleanor didn't look up from her glass. He'll come back. He always does. Not this time, James replied. And not because of her. Because of you, she said nothing. You had a chance to embrace something real, he continued. And you chose fear. Control. Arrogance. Eleanor's jaw tightened, but her hands trembled slightly. James walked to the door, pausing. When the baby is born, I hope you'll be ready to meet them. But if you're not, they'll grow up loved anyway. Beneath a canopy of wildflowers and soft spring air, Amanda and Michael stood face to face. No photographers. No socialites. Just close friends, family, and truth. Amanda held back tears as she repeated her vows, voice shaking but clear. Michael smiled through his own. Patty dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Sophia held Amanda's bouquet. James clapped first when they kissed, his eyes shining. There was no music except birdsong and laughter. And when Amanda placed her hand over her belly during the kiss, the guests clapped louder. It wasn't a wedding of status, it was one of soul. After the ceremony, they sat on a quiet bench at the edge of the garden, sunlight bathing their faces. Amanda leaned into Michael, her hand resting gently over her bump. He placed his hand over hers, fingers lacing. No more threats. No more lies. Just them, building something honest from the ruins. We did it, he whispered. Amanda nodded. We're not who we were before. No, he said. We're better. And as the breeze moved through the trees, they smiled, knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it as a family. Love, when true, endures more than just romance. It survives pressure, pain, and silence. Amanda and Michael found that kind of love. Not easy, but real. And now, as they begin a life grounded in truth and heart, we're reminded, no wealth compares to a soul held in loyalty. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more true heart-driven journeys like Amanda's. See you in the next chapter.